Hey there, thanks for stopping by my channel to color. Today we're going to be working on this adorable Stampin' Bella image called Bubbles Chicks. Aren't they super cute? I'll put a link to the card kit and all the supplies I used down in the description box in case you'd like to head over to the store and grab one up and color along with me. Don't forget, if you're new here, to subscribe to my channel and then hit the little bell next to it so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So I went ahead and I stamped my images on some Neenah 80-pound Solar White cardstock, so let's color. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with our colors. For our beak and our feet, we're going to use YR27 and 23, and then for the chicks, we're going to use Y38, Y21, Y06, and Y00. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by doing our beak and our feet. So we're going to go ahead with YR27, and we're going to put that wherever we want to have our shadows on our feet. So because I'm going to have him floating at the top of the bubble, I'm going to put the darkest parts at the bottom of his feet. Then I decided we needed to be a little bit closer, so I zoomed in a little bit. And down here, this guy's going to be kind of sitting on top of the sentiment, so I'm going to go ahead and put some shadows on the bottom of his feet. Got a little bit showing over there on the side, so I'm going to give that a dab of color. And then we're going to do a little dab of color, just a little bit at the base of his little cute beak there. Same for this little guy over here. We're just going to do the bottoms of his feet with a couple of little swipes. Nothing too fancy, guys. We're just going to go ahead and give them a quick swipe of color so that we can get those all finished up. And then for his beak, I went ahead and just did the bottom beak of this little guy. I'm going to go ahead and grab our YR23, and we're just going to fill in the rest of their feet and their beaks. And I went, since they're so small, I went ahead and went from the top down to the bottom, and then I just swiped over the line that was left over from my YR27 just to fill it in a little bit. Same with this one. I just swiped down from the top of each one of those cute little toes into the middle, and then I just swiped over the middle section there just to soften the line up on each of their little feet. They're pretty small, so you're not going to require much effort on these. But again, we're just going to go ahead and go up here, and I did swipe from the ends there. I kind of went for the ends, and I went to the middle, and then I just swipe over my extra little bit of color that's right there in the middle just to blend it, just to keep it all contained within one little section. Quick and easy. I'm just kind of, since they're so small too, I usually just go from, I do one at a time, but since there's such a small area, I went ahead and just did all three of the chicks at once. That way we wouldn't have to switch pins 500 times in between. They're pretty fast and easy, so it didn't require much effort. So now we're going to go ahead and start on our little chickens, and we're going to go with Y38 for our darkest color. I'm going to go ahead and put that down wherever I want there to be a shadow. So on my little wings, I'm going to go right next to his body, and then along the bottom of each one of his wings on this little guy. Same for this side, just a little bit along the bottom, and then where it touches his body, I did a little bit coming out. And then I'm going to do where he's touching the bubble, so I'm going to go up here around his feet. And right there underneath of his foot, he has a little bit of his feathers left there. So I went ahead and was really careful about going around my little feet there and just did a little bit closer so that it would be this completely orangish yellow color. And then his tail's kind of going to the left there, so I gave it a little bit of shadow so it looked like it had a little bit of shadow and it was casting it onto his body. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab Y21, and then we're going to go right over the edges of that Y38 and brush it just a little bit. I'm going to end up giving my chickens a couple of coats, so I'm not worried about it being any neat and tidy. I just kind of swiped along the edge of that line just to soften it a little bit, and then I just left it. I know it looks terrible, doesn't it? Look at all those lines and stuff, but we're not going to worry about that right at this moment. I just wanted to get a little bit of color on there. I just made sure that I swiped over the edge, and I kind of went into about a middle halfway in. Then we're going to go ahead and add our Y06, same thing. We're just going to go ahead and swipe over those lines. And there I am just quickly brushing over that Y21, adding that really nice bright yellow over it. And I didn't go all the way down this time because I know I'm going to come in with my second coat. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab Y00. This one has hardly any color at all, but it does help soften some of the lines. So I went up there and I just brushed it along and filled in my little areas there. And again, it looks pretty bad, but don't worry, because when you come back with a second coat, it's going to help soften some of that stuff up. So here I am with my second coat on my wing. I just went along the bottom. And then when I come back with my second coat, I always make sure that I brush past where I laid it down the first time. And as I use a little flicking motion, so I put my pen down and I flick it up away from me, and this causes me to kind of lift my hand a little bit. So as I get to the end of my flick, my pen pulls away from the paper and it makes it skinnier up there, or uses less ink, I guess is how I could explain it. At least that's what happens when I'm doing it. Then I'm going to go in with my second coat of Y21. So I'm just brushing his little wing there. And then I'm going to bring this, I'm going to kind of connect it to that little butt shadow, I guess. And then I'm again brushing this past where I had it the first time. I'm kind of brushing it up where the Y06 stopped. This will cover a lot more area and it helps soften all that stuff up. And I don't really want to have too much of my Y00 anyway, because it's not going to have very much color. And I want my little baby chicks here to be, or my chicks to be colored and look nice and bright. This Y06, if you go over all of the color that you already laid down, I just kind of swipe from the bottom, clear across up to the top. It adds that nice, pretty, bright yellow shade to everything that's down there. And by swiping over the whole thing, you are blending all those colors together, and it softened all of my lines so that it makes it nice and smooth. And then I just did a quick swipe on the edges with my Y00. And then I quickly had a couple little spots there. I thought maybe I could, if I swished my pen over it a little bit, it kind of blended a little bit better. So I think it turned out perfect. So we're going to go over here and we're going to do the exact same thing to this little guy. So you're just going to pick where you want to have some shadows, and you take your Y38. And on this guy, I'm going to go right along the bottom of his little wings. So kind of in all those little crevices, and I'm being careful because I don't want to go into my bubble, because I'm going to color those a multicolor and I don't want this bright yellow color to be on there. I'm adding a little dab of color above where he's leaning against the bubble, and then again around the bottom of these little wings there. And remember, we're going to give it 2 coats, so you don't have to worry if it doesn't look blended, and we're just giving it a quick swipe of color to get it started. And then we'll go with our Y21. And I always go over the edge of my last color, and I'm just pulling up just a little bit further. There's not really that much space up there on his head, so I'm trying to be kind of conservative so I don't use up too much of my room. Then we got our Y06, our bright yellow. We're just going to go ahead and swipe a little bit of that on there. Swiping over all those colors, blending them a little bit more together. I always like the second coat because it always looks so much better after you've given it a second coat than it did when I first started. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do the same thing with our Y00. I'm just going to add a quick little coat of our Y00, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add our second coat to soften everything up. Because again, this one's not looking too tidy there. I'm not loving him at all. But I know the second coat's going to help that out. So I'm just going to go right over where I applied it the last time. And this time I'm using my little flicking technique. And I'm just flicking away from me and up onto his wing, going past where I laid it down the first time. So this time I'm kind of going up past his little eyes on his head. And then we're doing the same thing over here on this wing, just flicking away from us and causing it to shorten up as it gets to, as my pen goes away from me, I tend to pick it up a little bit. So it causes the paper to get less ink than when I started. We'll go over that with our Y21, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in his wings, and I'm going to bring it up past his little beak over here, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Only this side I'm going to go ahead and leave a little bit, well, I guess I didn't. I thought I was going to leave a little spot there, but I didn't even do that. So we'll go ahead and go with Y06. So I'm just swiping over all of that color that I already laid down so we can soften it up. And then we'll go ahead and use our Y00 to do that little patch there on the top of his head. Isn't it cute? It looks like he has a little mohawk. These little birds are just so adorable. Then we're going to go over here and do the biggest little chick, and he's got a little bit more space, but again, he's not going to be that hard. We're just going to go ahead and start with our Y38, and we're going to go ahead and lay down some color where we want our shadows. So I'm going to give it a little bit here where his wing is touching his head, and then we're going to go underneath of his wing and give it some color underneath there. And then usually what I do is I go ahead and I lay a line down and then I brush away from it. But I was trying to be quick here, so I went ahead and I just kind of flicked it away from that line. And a lot of times if I do it like that, what happens is I flick my pen on the outside of my line and make a big mess. So don't do like I'm doing. Just draw your little line first, and then that gives you something to lay your pen down on. Then I decided, when I colored the first little guys for the first card that I took a picture of, I went right up to the edge of his wings there. I decided I didn't really like how that looked, so this time I'm leaving a little bit of white on the ends so that it could be a little bit lighter there and maybe stand out a little bit more, because it was looking kind of boring. And we're going to go ahead and add our Y21 to this, and I'm leaving the white on the edge there still. I'm going on the opposite side, filling in a little bit more of his wing. And then we're coming down here, quickly brushing over all this, going around our little feet down there. If you get some on your foot, it's not really going to matter, because our Y21 is pretty close to our YR23 that we used on his foot, so it's not going to make a big difference. Then we'll add our bright yellow Y06, and again, we're just brushing some of that on there. And I decided this time I was going to use that underneath, so I went ahead and brushed over his entire wing, leaving just a little bit of white at the top there so that we can add our lightest color in there. We're going to go ahead and connect our shadow there on his head and then brush it up quite a ways. And remember, it looks terrible, but we are going to go ahead and add a second coat, so I'm not worried that it looks nasty. So go ahead and go with your Y00. We're just going to brush that on there. Same for his wing, and I went ahead and left a little bit of white on the edge because I'm going to come back with my second coat. And then as I'm looking at this, I decided, oh, I forgot to do his other wing. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in my Y38 on the inside of his wing there. And then we're just going to go over all those areas we already put our color down on. So I'm quickly going along that edges, just drawing my little lines, make it a little bit better. Then I'm going to flick away from that line again so we can add a little bit color, and this for me helps soften it up quite a bit. And then this time when I do the bottom of him, I'm going to use my Y38 to fill in a bunch more of this area down here, because I didn't really love how he was looking. And I love that I left that light color on the edge of his wing, because now I can fill in that entire bottom area and it's going to stand out much better. So I'm kind of going up to where I left the Y21 and filling it all in with my Y38 just to soften it up. Then I decided I better give the bottom of his wing a little bit of color, and I'm not going to do that wing that I forgot about with two coats. I'm only going to do one since it's over there in the bright and shiny area, so I'm not going to worry about it having two coats this time. Then we're going to go ahead with our Y21. We're just softening the edge of our Y38. We're going to bring it up here on the edge. I'm going to go ahead this time and fill in and connect it with my bottom shadow so that it'll look a little bit more cohesive there. Add a little bit to our wing. Then we're going to go with Y06 for our bright yellow. Go ahead and swipe that over the entire thing here. We're going to fill in most of our wing. I'm going to again leave just a little bit of white there on the edge because I'm going to fill that in with the lightest color. But again, I go ahead and I swipe over from the bottom up, because for me this helps soften all that stuff together, and I just like how it looks that way. It may not work for you. Not everything that everyone else does is going to work for everybody, but for me, I find that after a little bit of practice, this worked the best for me. I'm going to go ahead with my Y00. We're going to fill it all the way in. So this time I'm going to make sure when I do his face that I go clear out there to his little beak and fill that in a little bit. I still got quite a large line there. Don't worry, because we're going to give it another coat of something here, and then we will help that soften up a little bit. So I'm going to go with my Y21. I'm going to go ahead and skip the Y38 because that's pretty dark, and I'm thinking it needs just a little bit more of this to help soften this line that's going on right here. So I'm pulling up past that line, and I'm flicking this up there into my bright yellow area. Then we'll come in with another coat of Y06. Going to go over that edge where that line is. I'm really trying to soften that line. I'm not loving how that looks. So by softening it, it will make it look at least a lot better to me. And then we'll go in with our third coat of our Y00 to soften everything. And I'm just going to leave it with that nice bright color there. It just looks like he's blowing the bubble, and then all the sun is maybe shining on his face. All right, so for the bubbles, we're going to use BG13, BG11, BG10, RV02, RV00, RV000, BV02, BV00, BG quadruple 0, Y11, and Y000. And if you missed any of those, you can always head over to the store blog, and I'll put a link to that down in the description box. And you can pick up the pin card at the bottom of the blog post, which will be down there for you to save on your Pinterest board. And then you can just use those colors later on. So these bubbles, I went over and I scope them out over at My Creative Scoop. Mindy over there had did a blog post a while back on how to do bubbles. So I did not create the wheel. I went over there. She did a nice little post on with pictures of every little step she did. I really liked it. And she used all of these colors to make bubbles on her blog. So I decided I didn't need to go ahead and reinvent the wheel. She had already done it. I was just going to steal her idea and color my bubbles the same exact way. And I really liked how they turned out. So I'm starting with my BG13, and I'm just doing about 1/4 of the bubble around the edge. And I'm trying to do too, when I get to the edge, I'm trying to make it go so that it's kind of fat in the middle and it tapers down to a little thin line that kind of goes off the side of the bubble there. Not outside the lines, it's still inside, but it just kind of tapers off so that it gets to a tiny little point and connects down into my bubble area. So see how thick it is right here? And then I'm bringing it down into a tiny little point where it just stops. That will help us keep everything all nice and blended. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go with our BV02. So BV02, we're going to do the same thing, but now we're going to take up about 1/2 of our bubble. So I started about a little bit onto my BG 13. I want to make sure that it blends in there with the color. So again, I started on that, and then I'm just working it around until I get to a little point about halfway around my bubble. Same over here. We're going to go with a little bit, and then we're going to thicken it up until we get to the BG 13. And then I got a little section there where it's got the color blended on it. And then I also make sure that it kind of goes over the top and then works. See how I got it's got a little space where it's got the green underneath, but it's also got like a thin line above the BG 13 so that it kind of softens it up there. I'm going to just widen this one out because that's the widest bubble of the ones that are by themselves, so I kind of thickened it up a little bit. So here I'm going in with my little triangle, I guess you could call it. It's got a little V on there, and then it works down, goes onto the BG13, down around the corner, and then to a little point and off of my bubble. This little one here is really small, so I'm trying to not take up too much space because we got a lot of colors to go through, and if you start using them all up, then you're going to get done before you ever get close enough. Whoops, sorry about that. I dropped my marker cap there. I'm trying to keep it on the screen so everybody can see what color we're working on at the same time. So again, we go ahead and I start above my BG13 with a little line, and then I come down so it blends onto the color and then over to a point on the other side. Quick and easy. And I'm also just doing them all at once so that we don't have to do each one individually and get the pins out 5,000 times. So RVO2, same thing. I went with a little bit above my BVO2, and then I blended it down so it connected with the BVO2 and goes over the top of it and causes another color and then to a point. We're just going to work our way around on this one here. Same thing. We're just doing our little point and working our way around to the other side. These colors that Mindy picked out are really bright. I love this RVO2. I don't think I hardly ever use that. Also, when I'm doing my bubbles, there's some lines that are already on there that are supposed to be highlights. I tried to leave those white, so I'm trying to be pretty careful about going around those and not getting any color on them because I'm not going to color them in. I'm just going to leave them that way. We're just slowly working our way around to the other side. A little crazy there with my pin, so I decided I better fill that in. And then I don't know what I was thinking because I went ahead and I grabbed Y11, but I didn't do the last two bubbles. I was having a nap there, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Y11, and we're going to fill in the rest of our little bubble there on that side, on our edge, not the whole thing, just the edge. And again, I'm making sure to go over the ends of both those colors it connects to, and then I'm giving it a little line in the center so that it will fill in a little bit of our circle. Over here, we're going to go over the top of our pink one and over to the edge. Always make sure to overlap it with the previous color so that it will create that secondary color in the middle. And over here we got a couple of little white spots, so I'm going around those carefully. I don't want to color them. Remember, I want them to stay white. And then we're going to go past that one and around to the other side, working our way around here. Over here, we're going to kind of pull this one over so that it goes underneath of his belly and then, or his butt, and we're going to connect it to the other green side over there. I think he's going to turn out really cute. And here I am looking at it and I realized that I forgot the pink one. Uh-oh. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my RVO2 and I'm just going to color this one in. We're just going to go ahead and give it that color on top of there since I completely forgot about it. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I didn't even realize it that I'm just going to, I put it away and then I'm going to do my Y11. So we're working our way around here. And then when I pull it over to do the next one, I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't do that one either. So I'm going to go ahead and grab RVO2 again. And we're going to do the RVO2 on this one that I completely forgot about. I was taking a little nap there. Maybe Mr. Hercules came in to say hi when I was coloring and I was distracted. I'm not sure. Sometimes he has to come in and see what I'm doing in here. So now we're going to go ahead with our yellow. So Y11, we're just going to fill it in and go underneath of his little legs there and give that green a little bit of patch. I gave this one a little bit more of my yellow on there because I didn't have any of the green going off on the other side. So now we're going to start with our inner colors. So BG11. BG11, I'm going to go ahead and brush along the edge of my BG13 where I had it last time. I'm just widening it out, bringing it into the purple side and the yellow side. And I'm just going to work my way around doing all the bubbles with my BG11. Same with this one. We're just going over the top of our line and pulling it into our purple. It's starting to add some character there. Oh, see, right here I stopped and Mr. Hercules has come in and he is getting a pet. All right, back to coloring. None of that, no more messing around. We're going to go ahead and finish up with our BG11. I'm just going to go right over the top of that yellow a little bit, going over the edge of my BG13, spreading it over into my purple there, my BVO2. I'm just taking up a little bit more of my bubble space and softening all of those edges up. So again, we're going underneath of our cute little bird's butt there. We're going to making it, and I love how when the yellow combines with it, it's kind of a yellowish greenish color. I really like how it looks on there. Iridescent looking. Well, same thing over here. Remember, this one's pretty small, so you want to take up a little bit less space. I try to get a little crazy, but I'm trying to be conservative. We're going to fill in the space underneath of our little bird's mouth there, and I'm going to go around this little wing and over to the other, back out the other side, and then brush onto my purple and down into my little V/line area. And we're going to go ahead with BG10 next. This one's really light, so it's going to definitely help pull that color out into nothing, pretty much. I'm going over the edge of my BG11, and I'm brushing a little bit more on the yellow and the purple so that we will use up some of that, adding some different colors in there. We're going right over the top of that one, and again down into our purple area so that we can change the color of that purple. It's still going to be purple underneath, but it adds a really cool dimension on top when you add the colors over the top of them like that. We're just working our way around. We're going to go over here to this side, do this one. And I'm always making sure when I do it that I add a little bit more color on top and spreading it out into the middle a little bit. We don't want it to have this huge, at least I didn't want it to have this huge white space in the middle. So I'm always making sure that I'm taking up more space, and at the end they all kind of converge into the middle of the bubble so there's no colors left over. They're just kind of all mixed together and causing this really cool iridescent color that looks really awesome when it's done. I'm also trying to keep my colors going around on the edges, but they're still in that kind of wide in the middle, narrow at the ends shape that I got going. I guess you call it a C, kind of like a little widened out or spread out C so that they kind of take up a little bit more space, kind of half moon, I guess. And there, see how much purple I added to that? But when you get all done, it's not going to be that purple when you get to the end, so don't worry. Here we're going right over the edge of my green, going into my purple. The purple really darkens it up, but when you go over it with the pink and the yellow on our next coats, it's not as dark as it is right this second. Trying to figure out how best to turn my little bubbles so that I get going in the right direction, and I decided that they definitely needed to be going this way because I get a better flicking motion if I'm flicking it away from myself rather than having it go towards me. So up here, see, I've got it going the wrong direction. I'm like, I better turn this so that I can get a little bit better of my flicking, because then when it flicks up, it gets a little bit, like I said, I use less ink when I get out to the end of my flicking motion if I'm going this direction. Add a little bit to this one, and again, it's taking up quite a bit more space on this bubble because it's really small, but it's going to look really cool when it's finished. Here we'll go a little bit onto our greens. We got those 3 greens on that side that we're going on to this time, and we're just taking up a little bit more of our area closer to our pink, and again keeping in that half moon shape so that we won't take up too much or we won't use up too much of our space. Then we're coming in with our 3rd color of purple, so we're just going to go right over the edge, and again I'm flicking it more towards the middle. Remember, we're trying to take up a little bit of that space so there's not a big white area in the middle. I didn't want that to be on my bubbles. You could leave the white in there in the middle and it will look, you know, just fine. That's just not what I was going for this time. A little bit up here to this one. They're really coming together now. I really like how they're looking. They look really cool at the end when I put all the glitter on the top of them, made them all nice and sparkly and shimmery. But see how nice that one's looking after you get that all shaded there and it's kind of going around. Here we've taken up all of our white space for this bubble, but it's okay. We're just going to add the pinko right over the top of it, and it will make it look really cool with all the nice colors all blended together. I decided this one's got a little bit of a line still going on, so I'm brushing it a couple more times just to soften that line so it won't be quite so harsh. Now we're going to move into our pinks. So we're going to grab RV00, and I'm brushing right over the pink I already laid down, doing my little half moon shape and pulling it out into my balloon. And I'm always turning my little guys here so they're going in the direction that is easiest for me to color. If that's something you haven't tried to maybe work with your coloring a little bit more, it could be something you could try out. I am constantly moving my image all over the place to get the best angle for me and how I like to color. A lot of times when I do the videos, I try to keep them in one place just so that it's not distracting and causing you to get dizzy. But it really does work best if you move it around in the direction that works best for you when you are doing your flicking motion or however you like to color. For me, that works pretty good, and it definitely gives me a lot more control on the way I'm going. On this one there, he's got a bunch of that green up there underneath, so I made sure to pull a little bit of that pink in that area so that it would soften it up and add a little bit of that shine in there. Now we're going to go with our RV00. We're just going over the edge of those last 2 pink ones, and I'm pulling it into the middle of my bubble. Look how cool that bubble looks there. It looks almost like a little jar because it hasn't broken off yet, but it looks really awesome. I like it. Here we're going to go ahead and add a little bit to this one. I've got a little bit left for my yellow still. Working our way around. More turning. Sorry about that. Just turn, turn, turn. That works best for me. This one I'm just going to go ahead and swirl that color all over the bubble, and that will help kind of push those colors out to the outside and kind of soften up the edges a little bit. This one I decided there's still that little purple line, so I went ahead and added a little pink down there at the bottom just because. Now we're going to go ahead and finish it up with our Y000. And again, I'm going over where I laid my Y11, and I'm just brushing it into the middle, and I'm making sure that it's filling in the entire bubble area. There's not going to be any white left on my bubbles. You can leave white if you so feel like it, but for me, I'm going to go ahead and fill it all the way in. And on some of them, I just go ahead and swipe over the entire bubble. That way it's completely filled in, and I really like how all the colors mix together and give it that nice iridescent multicolored look. It just looks really cool in the end. And again with this one, because it's so small and I colored it in, I just swirled around in the middle a little bit just to add that yellow. And again, it will push some of those colors away from the center and out to the outside. And we're just going to go ahead and finish this little guy up here with a quick swipe over him, and that is going to do it for the bubbles. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my little chickens out. I'm going to fussy cut them out, and then I'll come back and we'll put our card together. Alright guys, so I went ahead and cut them out, and then I went ahead, your card kit's going to come with a little white piece of paper that you can add your own clouds onto. And my cloud template is just a piece that I used. I cut a bunch of scallops off it freehand, and I use that to make my clouds up in the sky. I usually use my Ranger tumbled glass distress ink and my little sponge dauber, and I'll go ahead and put a link down in the description box to how I make clouds, because I did a whole video on that, and I didn't want you to have to sit here and watch me fiddle with the clouds for 10 minutes. So I went ahead and just cheated and went ahead and did them on there. Your stamp set this time comes with that sentiment, so you're going to get that in your card kit. I went ahead and stamped it on the piece that I wanted to be at the bottom of my card. There's enough room on your piece to go ahead and stamp that on there. And I used my VersaFine Onyx black ink. I'm having a problem here with my tape runner. It's decided that it didn't want to go anywhere. It was kind of stuck. It was being a pill, so I got it running with my finger, and then I'm just adding my tape on there. I'm going to go ahead and put this bigger piece down here at the bottom of my cardstock, and it should fit perfectly. I did cut them both at 4 inches, and I made sure that the ones with the clouds on it, the white pieces, I made sure it was on the outside of the line, so they may be a little bit bigger. So after you get them onto your piece of cardstock, you can go ahead and trim that little bit of extra off. I didn't bother. I just went ahead and left that little dab of paper that was on the edge hanging over. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't too short, so I did cut the handmade cloud piece inside the 4-inch line, and I cut the cloud template pieces there with the little dots on it on the outside of the line. So they're just a tad bit bigger, but I wanted to make sure they would fit. These top pieces, you can pick which one you want to be on the top and the bottom. You could also trim them off so that they're a little bit shorter if you wanted to do that. That way they could be in different places, however you want to do it. I went ahead and flipped it upside down so that I could make sure that I lined it up there at the top, and it'd be even all the way across. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop this piece after I get it all together. I'm going to pop it up. So I went ahead and cheated, and I cut out some foam tape already, and I'm just going to apply it to the back of my piece. Quick and easy. You can put as much on there as you wanted. I'm just going to go with my 3 quick little strips across here. I thought that would be plenty. I love this foam tape because it's super easy to peel off the tape, and ta-da, you got a whole piece there all ready to go. I usually buy it in the pop dots, but after I started buying it in the roll, I'm never going back to that. You can just cut them any size you want. I'm making sure my card is opening in the direction I want it to, because I am totally the person that would put it on upside down. So I always make sure to check. And then you got all your little pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead, and I went ahead and added my little foam dots onto the back. I just used my foam tape and cut them the size I wanted, and I stuck them onto the back of each of my little chickens and the bubbles there, so I didn't have to think about it later. I'm going to put this guy that's blowing the bubbles right on top of my sentiment so that it looks, kind of draws your eye to may you never grow too old for bubbles. May you never outgrow bubbles. And then you can put your chickens floating along here. This cute little guy, I'm going to kind of have him popping off my little cloud piece there, but make sure that when you put him on there, he's not too far off or he won't fit in your envelope. Then you're just going to go ahead and add your bubbles wherever you want those to go. I just got him floating around up there in space wherever I felt like it. And I definitely like that I put the foam dots on the back already, because they were quick and easy to peel off and just stick them wherever I wanted to. This is not the smallest bubble in the set either. There is another smaller one, but I know it would be a pain to cut out, so I didn't bother stamping that one. All right, so now we got it all together. I'm going to go ahead and use my Wink of Stella brush pen and clear to add some sparkles to each one of my little bubbles there. And I'm not being tidy about going over the little white space. I went over the entire bubble area with my sparkle, and I usually add 2 or 3 little quick swipes over it so that it will be really sparkly when I'm done. And it dries really fast, so you don't have to worry about swiping over it and then waiting and waiting and waiting for it to dry. I just swipe over it, and then I go over it a couple more times, and I call that good. You could, after it dries, you could go back and add more later, but usually I put on a couple of coats, and that's plenty of sparkles for me. And I love how it dries super fast. You don't have to wait. It's just an instantaneous thing. You wipe it on and it's dry. If you didn't have this, you could also use your some Stickles Stardust and just stick it on there. Just gonna have to wait longer for it to dry. That will work perfectly fine too. You could also put some glue on there and just sprinkle some glitter on it, and that would add some sparkles on there. Or maybe do some little dotty spots on your bubbles so that they are completely glittered, just have little spots of glitter on there. I think that would look really cool. I was just cheating the system here with my pen and wiping it on there and calling it good. I think it'll look really cool. This would be a great pick-me-up card to send to a friend in the mail. I might have to do that. I might find somebody and send it in the mail this week. I need to do that more. How about you? Do you need to do more of that kind of stuff? So anyway, that's going to do it for our card today. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If you would like to see more close-up photos or get some more details and a list of things I used, make sure to head over to the store blog and I'll put a link to that down in the description box. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Otherwise, I hope you are having a fabulous day and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.